I was not sure what I wanted to do after I was given the decision of no longer working in corporate America. And I was a little late in years, and I thought, you know what, let me follow my dream of writing, of doing something that can make a difference. And so I started writing.
Angela Flores, better known as Angie, was born in Hollywood, California.
I was an only child. Basically, my grandmother came from a family of 13. My mother was an only child, raised by the single parent, and I was an only child raised by my mother and grandmother. It wasn't a two-parent home, but we were some strong-willed women, so it was kind of difficult.
You had your own two-parent home.
Yeah, I had my own two-parent home. And you know, family comes in all different shapes and sizes.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter how many or who, just as long as there's love in the home, that's all that mattered.
Growing up in Hollywood, Angie was motivated by her mother to attend performing arts schools. Angie says that although she is a creative person, acting never quite took to her.
It just was not something that I was really interested in, being in front of the camera as much so as being the creative part of it on the backside. And I took up child psychology because it interested, I was interested in working with children in some capacity.
Angie speaks fondly about her grandmother, who she called Grandma Goji, as being the driving force behind some of her endeavors.
My grandmother was a writer in Germany, and she wrote in an underground newspaper in Nazi Germany against the whole Hitler regime. And she fought to get the word out there and to make a difference and to protect her people. And she had to flee, and she came to America and became a translator. And so she kept writing. But while she was in Germany, she also did children's books. She was an illustrator and wrote a few stories as well. And unfortunately, she had to leave everything behind. And it was hard to see her decline, you know, not remembering who I was, you know, calling out for, you know, her mom and calling out for her dad. And she had Alzheimer's, dementia, and just very elderly, very frail. And it was very hard to see such a strong, smart woman. My grandmother spoke many languages. As I mentioned, she was a translator. And she spoke French and German and Italian and Spanish. I know she had some of that in her, her language. She translated documents. She even had Latin. She translated documents for people that were coming over, to America, and translated documents so they could, get in properly. And she ran her business from the home. And it was very hard being in a household like that, knowing that this was my hero, all of a sudden not able to, remember.
How long did she suffer?
For about 3 or 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was tough. Basically, most of what I do, I know that she's sitting on my shoulder. And I know she's watching out for me. I can still hear her little German accent, Angela, just calling out for me. So I know she's with me, so it's not so heartbreaking.
After losing her grandmother, Angie felt like she needed a change in her environment and decided to move to the South Bay.
And when I was driving down the 110 freeway, and just everything's like this until you get to El Segundo, Rosecrans, then you're like, hey, I can drive this. It was nice. I knew that being in the South Bay was where I wanted to stay. I always wanted to just have that dream, that picket fence kind of dream, family, children. And I ended up having a husband, a great husband, and 3 boys.
And for the first time, Angie was the only woman in the house.
I don't know what to do with boys. I'm a girl, only women in the house.
Right.
But God said, you can handle this.
Angie worked full-time in the recruiting department of a satellite cable company. And after 10 years, the organization decided to take a different route.
Decided, let's move everything, what you're doing, to Colorado and just do everything on the phone. And I thought, wow, everything's turning so technical and impersonal. When you hire somebody, you'd like to speak to them face to face and have the whole team fit in. And things were changing. So I could not pick up and move to Colorado. It was different because I worked 10 to 12-hour work days, and I would come home with my purse on my shoulder. Do your homework and get to bed, wash up, and not really spend too much time during the week with them. And our weekends were packed. I was trying to pack as much as we could into the weekends so I could make memories and have special moments with them. It was exhausting working and doing that, and now all of a sudden I'm home.
But losing her job is what made her realize the precious time she was missing with her children and her husband.
I just felt like I needed to be there, especially after hearing my son go to one of the retreats and saying that, yeah, my mom, you know, she works pretty hard and she wasn't really there a lot when I was growing up. Oh, that hurt. That really hurt. So I swore I wouldn't do that, and at least I could be there for them.
Bring me to that moment of when you first picked up a pen and started writing.
It was to take notes on what I was making up for my kids, because I could not keep my eyes open when reading to them at night, because I came home late from work. I had to make up stories, and I'd ask them to give me animals or situations that would spark the creative story process, and they would want to hear those stories again, like most kids do. And I don't remember what I said, since I was half asleep and loopy while I was making the stories up. So I started writing them down.
For Angie, losing her corporate job was the best thing that could have happened to her, because she was now home spending time with the people she loved most. And it was during those many bedtime stories that she discovered a passion for writing and telling stories, just like her grandmother did growing up. When we come back, find out how Angie uses her new gift to inspire others.
Palm trees, coastline, craft brews. Yep, this is Southern California. But this is Torrance. Have you ever driven to a whole other city just for a bowl of ramen? Because if you haven't, that's about to change. Have you ever been to a beach that feels so much like your own private beach that you're like, where has this been all my life? Welcome, my friends, to Torrance Beach. So private, you hadn't even heard of it. Have you ever been to a mall that had literally 2.7 million square feet of shopping? Run, don't walk to Del Amo Fashion Center. And get this, Torrance is the actual epicenter of the South Bay's craft brew industry. I guess you could say the brews are just craftier here. We also have a farmer's market that's just as much about the people as it is about the food. And even our museum scene is the best of the South Bay. All this just 15 minutes from LAX. You'll come for the city, stay for the experience, and leave as a friend. So, are you in?
Going from working 12-hour days in corporate America to being a stay-at-home mom was a big change for Angie Flores. But it was during that time that she discovered she shared similar passions to her grandmother.
And my son saw me making the notes and told his teacher, my mom writes stories. And the teacher said, hey, can you come and read some of your stories to our class?
Angie now had an audience other than her own children. She went to Altaria Elementary School and she was a hit.
So I printed out a few pictures from the internet pertaining to the characters in the stories, and I took them to the school and I read to his kindergarten class, and they were interested. They were asking questions at the right place and laughing at the right time, and I thought, okay, I think I have something here. And the teacher even said, you should look into those. So I was like, okay, I'll look into it.
That experience further sparked her interest in turning this newfound hobby into a profession.
I had these stories, didn't know what to do, and I went online and I found a marathon that was happening in February, and it was write a story a day for the month of February. So I thought, okay, I could do this because I have my notes from the other stories. So I wrote the stories, and I didn't quite do the marathon. It was more like a 5K, just because I couldn't keep up with all the other demands. And now I had 21 stories in my hands that I really didn't know what to do with. And I was online and reading about how to publish your own stories or how to write a book. So I found the Children's Book Writers of Los Angeles one day on a whim. They said, today, come down and change your life at the Kickstarter program.
And that workshop did change her life and gave her more direction in her writing, especially when it came to her publishing. Angie was worried about losing her own voice if she got an agent or was signed under a publishing company.
It taught me about what I needed to do if I wanted to self-publish and what I wanted to do if I wanted to traditionally publish. And traditional seemed like it didn't have as much creative freedom because you'd get an agent and you'd have to do what the publishers would tell you. So I thought, with my first book, I'm going to do it myself. But I still didn't know how. So with the Children's Book Writers of Los Angeles, I went to their meetings, I got really involved. We had workshops where agents would come down and publishers would come to speak to the members and tell us how to do what they did.
2 years after joining the Children's Writers Book Association, originally known as the Torrance Children's Book Writing Group, Angie decided to become a board member. And as an organization, they have published 3 books together: Story Sprouts, Story Sprouts Voice, and their biggest project, Kayla Wayman, Junior Time Traveler. But that wasn't enough for Angie, who wanted to share her own work.
I wanted to see how to do it myself, get my own hands dirty.
And Angie had all these stories and didn't know what to do with them. And as a self-publisher, she says you are in charge of every aspect of putting your book together, marketing, and selling it. So she reached out to an art teacher at Bishop Montgomery, the school her children attended and her husband Lee graduated from when he was a teenager. Angie hoped that the art teacher could help illustrate some of the stories and bring them to life.
He says, I've got a better idea. Why don't I give these stories to the students and use them as a lesson? It'll help me not to have to worry about a lesson plan for the week, and it'll give them the opportunity to illustrate for a children's book. He gave me the stories a few weeks later and said, okay, well, just so you could see how the students are interpreting what you've written. That was the main goal. I didn't think I was going to get an illustrator from that. And the artwork was beautiful from all the different students. I mean, very talented kids, but one just stood out. And that was the illustrator for my Cubs Wish book. And her name is Yadan Yuan, and she was just amazing. She captured the essence of everything that I wanted from this one story. And with her talent, put this softness, this art feel to the whole book that I said, she's mine. I can't let her go. So Cub's Wish, it was just the baby bear's wish on the star. And my books, basically I've looked back and reflected on the books that I've written to try and see if there was a common thread on my stories. And it just hit me actually just recently that all of my stories are based on just be happy for what you have, you know, and just be glad that you're okay and you're protected and you're loved.
It was never just about putting words down on paper for Angie. She really wanted to inspire readers with every turn of a page.
Papa Panda and his cub are taking a walk and they find the wishing star. And together they try and find the perfect wish for the wishing star to grant. And they go through several choices, you know, should I be a superhero? And Papa's like, the forest is pretty safe. And he says, well, should I be rich and own all the bamboo? And Papa's like, nah, we've got enough bamboo for everybody. You don't need to do that. So he goes inside and he thinks of a few more different options and then asks his dad, Dad, what would you wish for? And that was what I wanted. I wanted some communication, you know, for the reader and the listener to basically maybe have that conversation afterwards. What would you wish for? And basically the ending is basically wishing from the heart. And that's what you have to do. So when I go to schools and talk to the kids, I talk to them about wishes. I say, do you blow out candles? Do you wish on stars? And I'm like, yeah, and what do you wish for? And oh, I wish I had a chocolate castle, or I wish I owned a unicorn, or, you know. And I was like, that's great. Those are awesome wishes, and they could come true if you work hard on them, but have you wished from the heart? You can see their little brains starting to work, and oh, I wish my grandma wasn't sick, or I wish my doggy wasn't sick, and oh, I wish my goldfish didn't die, and you know, I wish the world would just get along, and you hear some pretty deep feelings, and that's what I wanted. I wanted the creative process, not just what type of wish, you know, would you like? You know, I wish I was a millionaire, I wish I owned a home. No, something from the heart, and it gets pretty deep, and it's brought me to tears a few times hearing some of the kids.
In January of 2017, Angie became a published author.
It was surreal. It was surreal. The feeling of watching Amazon and seeing your book go up through the ranks, it was just surreal. It was amazing. Watching UPS come to my door with a stack of books and say, this is your book, it's here. It was like, me? This is really happening? Wow, it's tangible. I did something that I can hold, and you know, next to getting married to my husband and next to having my children, this was another great process, great adventure for me.
Angie wanted to show the world that it's never too late to pursue your passions.
Doing it for several reasons, as I mentioned, my grandma, my children. I want to prove to them if you go out there and do something and really put your mind to it, you won't feel like you're working. It'll be fun, and only good will come from that. Because you don't live long enough to enjoy everything, so you might as well enjoy what you're doing. I actually have a few of my stories that are being illustrated at this time by different students. I wanted to have someone come along on this ride with me that maybe could spring off earlier than I did. And having Dawn, she's now the illustrator of a best-selling book, of a #1 new release. I've won several awards based on the book, based on her art, based on the story, and now she can say, I'm the illustrator of a best-selling children's book. She's only 19, 20 years old. I wish that I had somebody to hold my hand and do that for me when I was younger.
And she could always count on her loved ones for support, especially her husband of over 20 years who trades in his suit and tie for a panda costume.
He's very supportive as far as with the family. He's a great father. He is actually the dean at Bishop Montgomery High School here in Torrance. And he's really good with the kids. And as far as the book goes, he's so supportive. He's been there. He says, okay, take your time finding your career, doing what you need to do, but follow your dream. And he's so supportive that he's actually my mascot when I go to events.
What are the biggest challenges of this whole process?
Sales. Just getting the word out, because I am a self-published author. It's a saturated field for children's book writers, and the process is difficult because there's so many out there, but everybody is valuable. All of those books out there, they all have amazing messages, and just to keep up with the interest and not get lost. The challenge has been to stand out from the rest. My marketing efforts are a little different, a little off the cuff.
But she wouldn't have it any other way.
If you don't take a chance on these wishes of your own, how are you going to know? So I believe in taking the chances and just seeing what happens. For my birthday this year, I said, okay, well, I didn't quite make it to Italy, so what do I do next? I'm jumping out of a plane. So I took a chance. Just knowing that I can do something. I never knew what I wanted exactly to do, but I'm doing something to reach somebody, to create conversation between a parent and child, I think is very important, because we are their future. The adults, the parents, their caregivers are the future, and this book makes them communicate. Because once a child hears an adult, hears their wish, it inspires them in some way, you know, and brings out a conversation to where I think will shock the adults. I didn't know I had this wish sometimes, because we get so caught up in being mom and being the worker and being dad. You know, the book is a father-son book. You know, it's for the males to communicate as well.
And she is spreading the message one language at a time. Cub's Wish has been made into Braille and will be translated in 8 more languages, including French, Spanish, and Japanese.
I just want to go to the top. Where I want to go from here is to have my other books published, to have more people receive the message, and it's just about sharing and knowing that I've reached people in some way, and to hopefully inspire someone who had a dream or who had a story in the back of their mind to get it on paper. If you believe enough in your story, if you believe enough in what you're doing, you'll convince people it's worth it. I am in love with my story. I'm in love with my book. I'm in love with my message. And if I wasn't, I don't think I would be working as hard. So you have to love what you're doing so other people see it, other people feel it, and then it'll get in their bookshelf as well.
Angie has tackled her first book and working on her second. And to those who don't have the support system to follow their dreams, she says this:
be your own inspiration. Because if you wait for others to inspire you, you're just going to be sitting in the audience. You need to be on that stage. Not necessarily, literally, but you need to be the opening act for yourself.
Angie Flores is a best-selling author. The day the book launched, it received the #1 new release and bestseller status on Amazon. Children'sPublishing.com named Cub's Wish one of the top 7 books that teach kindness to children, and was a certified good read from the #1 rated iTunes podcast, Reading with Your Kid. Angie is requested to speak at several schools, workshops, and events. She is also on the board of Reading is Fundamental, a nonprofit organization that works towards providing books to children in underprivileged schools. She continues to serve the South Bay by promoting the importance of reading, and just like in Cub's Wish, she is guiding the youth with their dreams. And through it all, she knows Grandma Goji is watching, smiling down on her, proud of her work. For Torrance CitiCABLE, I'm your host, Jesse Pierre, speaking to ordinary people, doing extraordinary things.